Гледате Еврозум. Ова издание на Еврозум во Европскиот парламент. Мој гостин е европската пратеничка од Холандија, Мариче Шаке. Welcome, Madam Шаке. You have proposed recently a motion for resolution for freedom of the media to the AFET, Committee of Foreign Affairs. In the draft proposal, you are asking a European Union to play more active role in the sphere of the media freedom. It means that you are not satisfied of how European Union is dealing with these issues?
Well, the European Union, I believe, should and can play a much more ambitious role in today's world. And when we look at our foreign policy, of course there's a lot that's going on, but for me, freedom of expression, press freedom, digital freedoms like on the internet are among the most important ones because they enable people to enjoy their human rights like freedom of expression, access to information in an unprecedented way. And so I think we should be more clever and more ambitious in how we effectively use the EU's policies, but also diplomatic channels and programs that help foster press and media freedom all over the world.
What are the biggest challenges for EU in regards of the freedom of the media?
Well, my report focuses on foreign policy, and so if you look at the euro crisis and the financial crisis that comes with it, there's a tendency by many in the EU to be inward focused. People want to solve the problems in their own country first. We are dealing with major challenges like youth unemployment, and I understand that deserves a lot of attention. But the world is not standing still and waiting for the EU to solve its own problems. There are many changes in our neighborhood, North Africa, the Middle East, but also our eastern neighborhood, where the EU should play a more engaged role and make sure that we do not forget and turn our backs towards the rest of the world as we are preoccupied with our own issues. At the same time, the EU is working on a common foreign and security policy, and so we're in a transition from 27 different policies to one strong EU global policy. And in that process, I would like to emphasize the importance of press freedom. It helps hold governments and power to account. It helps transparency, and it should be an essential part of free and fair elections in every country. So press and media freedom really cannot be underestimated as an essential part of societies, including of democracies.
Do you think that EU has to create, to build some new instruments, new institutions in order to take care about the freedom of the media in a more efficient way?
Well, I'm not so much in favor of creating new rules and new departments because bureaucracy can also stop and hamper flexibility and hold us back. But what I do think is that we can update existing programs and that we have to look at what we still need to include that we don't have now. So let me give you an example. In a lot of countries, journalists are pressured through court cases also, libel cases or other kinds of cases where they are taken into a trial period, and that already hurts their work. And a number of journalists do not make that much money. They may not have a lawyer, they may not have the expertise to defend themselves or the funds to do so. And so I think the EU should think about creating legal assistance, both in know-how or in funding if that's necessary, to be able to help journalists defend themselves before courts everywhere in the world. And that's an addition that we hear from people whether they work in Africa or in Asia, that would really help them be more effective in ending the impunity of the intimidation of journalists.
Ms. Šake, what's your assessment about the freedom of the media in the so-called enlargement country, Western Balkans countries?
Yes. Well, in many of the Western Balkan countries there are still a lot of challenges. In Macedonia, if you look at the enlargement report that the European Parliament put out last year, the criticism of the lack of free and pluralist and independent media is among the strongest criticism. This Parliament clearly identifies the difference between the letter of the law and the implementation of the law. And also when you look at the work by NGOs such as Freedom House, which assesses the freedom of the press in countries around the world, we both observe that there is too much of a mix in ownership between those who have a political interest and those who own or influence media. And that there is a selective application of the law, whether it's tax laws or libel laws, and this could hamper the free press. It could also lead to self-censorship, which I think is a very dangerous kind of crippling effect on free press, when people become afraid because they know what might happen if they speak their minds. And if Macedonia is interested in joining the EU, it will require a lot of reforms to actually have a pluralist, diverse media landscape where media can act independently and where journalists can speak their minds, even if it's very critical of the government or certain business interests, because that is what the free media is. And it probably involves changing laws, but also a mindset.
What do you think about the involvement of the European Commission and the Commissioner Füle within the process of, to try to improve the situation with the freedom of the media in Macedonia?
Well, I hope he's helpful. It is certainly our ambition as this parliament to see the press and the media to be able to do their work according to the highest standards. We also work on that consistently within the EU. In the EU, we also have problems with the media. I mean, there has been big ethics cases in the United Kingdom where journalists were hacking people's phones. There are challenges in Hungary, Italy, Romania. Many of our member states, we see problems around the media and human rights. So we are certainly working on our own improvement, but any candidate member state specifically has to keep in mind that the rule of law, a free press and media, good governance, democracy and human rights are integrally linked. And I think the push by the European Commission to want to open the negotiating chapters 23 and 24 that deal with justice and fundamental freedoms first, and to close those chapters the last, is a very good move to show to the people of our candidate member states that we are serious about their fundamental rights.
What do you think about the exchange of views that you had in the Committee of Human Rights, and you have now one ongoing debate in the AFET Committee of Foreign Affairs about Macedonia? Do you think that some of the points that was raised about the freedom of the media are going to be included in the final report of the AFET Committee for Macedonia?
You mean about press and media freedom specifically?
Yeah. Do you think that some part of these points about the freedom of the media are going to be included in the report?
Absolutely. If you look at previous reports by this parliament, I would say press and media freedom are very substantial elements of the enlargement report. And I expect that this will be the same until the situation is improved without a doubt. So again, this will mean improvement in the letter of the law and improvement in the implementation of the law, where nobody is above the law and where everybody can be subject to being checked by the media, to be challenged, to be put under scrutiny, for information to be available and accessible, which is also a very important way. Access to information to check whether the government is doing its role in the right way. So we're looking at a lot of details: access to information, libel laws, media independence, journalistic freedom, internet freedom. We're looking at all those when it comes to Macedonia, as we do with every enlargement country. And I personally believe, I'm from a liberal political party, I believe free expression is among the most essential individual human rights that people have, and collectively they're manifested in a good media landscape.
How do you comment the latest development in Hungary? It's very strange, having in mind that Hungary is a member state of the European Union, to see such a situation in the freedom of the media.
Well, sadly, in the EU we see that governments of the member states are reluctant to address problems in colleagues' own house. It seems like the governments of the member states are reluctant to address these challenges, while here in the Parliament we would like to go much further. And specifically when you look at the role that the EU plays in the world, I think it is bad for our credibility that we are trying to keep Turkey or Macedonia to respect press freedom when we're not as strictly addressing the problems in our own house. So I'm happy that Guy Verhofstadt, the president of our liberal group here in the European Parliament, has said that there needs to be a procedure vis-à-vis Hungary. And that it has to happen sooner rather than later, because the problems are very, very serious, and I believe that that is the role of the EU too.
My last question, Ms. Šake, the media in general worldwide are in kind of transition. How do you see the perspective? How do you see the media in the foreseeable future?
Well, I think digitization and new technologies are presenting a whole different world. They truly have a revolutionary impact, and the monopolies on information and power, governments and media, are the most challenged by this this network of empowered individuals. And I think to a large extent I'm optimistic about this development. I think it is great that individuals are empowered, that you can start your own blog, that you can find information from all over the world.
Do you think that influence will move from the traditional media towards internet?
The people. Oh, absolutely. We already see this. We see that traditional news outlets are challenged by the internet. They're trying to move their services to the internet and have to kind of reinvent themselves. But we also see exciting news services that really only exist online. I personally use Twitter very regularly to speak with my constituents. They can ask me questions, they can criticize me, they can come up with good ideas. And it is a way for me to be available, to be a good representative, to be transparent.
Does it work?
Well, you should ask my followers, but I think it works. And
how many followers you have?
18,000, the most of the Dutch members of European Parliament. But when you look at countries where traditional media are censored, or when they're in the hands of the government, or when there is a problem, then you also see that especially the internet offers new opportunities for people to freely express themselves or access information, or to publish injustices. But at the same time, we have to be aware that the technologies can also be used against people for massive censorship, for surveillance and tracking and tracing. And so it is essential for me that the EU also includes this digital aspect in our ambition to be defending and promoting press and media freedom in the world.
Madam Šake, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Благодарам што не следевте. Гостин во оваа емисија беше Мариче Шаке, пратеник од Холандија во Европскиот парламент. До гледање, се гледаме во наредното издание на Еврозум.